Welcome, folks. We're just going to give everyone a few minutes to arrive. So if you would tell us where you are today in the world, and one word of how you're showing up, whether that's hungry or curious or happy or snowy or whatever it might be, put that in the chat. And again, we're just going to give people another minute and start at 5 after. Love those. And again, as you arrive, just give us your name, your geography, where you are, and one word of how you're doing today. And I think with that, we are right at 12:05, so we'll get started and let folks filter in as they do. So I'm Nell Derek Debevoise. I'm the founder and CEO of Inspiring Capital, and thrilled to be with you all today or later as you watch this recording to share a bit of the spirit of the Purposeful Growth Fellowship. This is a remote program to help you clarify your impact, which is what we're going to be thinking about today, but then also activate your purpose and really be part of the new way, which we'll share a bit about today too. Feels like a really exciting time to be doing this. We've been doing the work for 9 years and had the first iteration of this pilot in the fall, which was fabulous. People really found it motivating and centering and grounding amid all that continues to happen in our lives and world. So congratulations on taking the risk to be here with us today. And we look forward to sharing a bit more about what the program looks like. So with that, I'm going to pass to my fantastic colleague, Sarah Daniels, to ground us a little bit. Mindfulness is a key element of change. And so we spend some time on that in the fellowship and wanted you to get a taste. Sarah?
Thanks, Nell. And so, yes, as Nell said, we're going to take just a minute, maybe about 2 minutes, doing a little mindfulness moment. This one is going to help us clarify and clear out anything that does not serve us, and welcome in things that we want and need right now in this session, but also in this year. So we're going to start by getting into our meditative posture. And that looks different for everyone, but if you can try to have your feet flat on the floor, roll your shoulders down and back, place your hands in your lap, tuck your chin slightly to your chest, and then close or divert the eyes. And just start to breathe in and out through the nose here, just deep belly breaths, filling up the belly with air and squeezing all of that air back out. And while we're here, we're just going to start to think about maybe what you want to release. Anything that does not serve you or stresses you out or makes you feel anxious. Every time you breathe and exhale in your breath, just start to think about expending all of those things, the worry, the stress, the heaviness. Just breathe it all out. This can be one term at a time. Try to pinpoint what is giving you a rest, what is not serving you. And next we'll start to breathe in on our inhales, anything that we want to welcome into this session, this time, our day, or this year. What do you need more of? And attaching term by term to those inhales. We'll do about 3 more cycles here with our inhales and exhales. And then whenever you're ready, after those free cycles, you can come on back to the group. And thank you all for practicing. Back to you now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah. And welcome. I know I'll let people get in. There's a few other folks coming who missed that beautiful mindfulness. Thank you so much, Sarah. So hi, for those of you who are just joining us, you missed some really nice breathing and centering. That's part of every Inspiring Capital experience. So maybe just take a 10-second deep breath, breathe down into your belly and arrive. Also, please share in your chat, for those of you who just came, where are you in the world today, your name, and just how you're feeling about being here. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll dive in. Joyful is good. Luis, how are you feeling? You're in Lisbon. I love it. Such a beautiful city. I spent my 30th birthday there. Awesome. So folks, this is the Clarify Your Impact webinar. This idea is to give you a preview of this Purposeful Growth Fellowship that launches next week. Sorry, in a few weeks, next month. So today, we're going to cover a little bit of background, give you some of the content from the fellowship as a preview. We're going to let you all share why you are here. That's really important to us. Inspiring Capital programs work because they are interactive, because you get engaged. You're not just passively listening or reading or studying. And then we have an invitation for you. And so you'll hear a little bit about that. Our goal is to wrap all of that well within the hour by 1 o'clock and then leave Q&A after that for those of you who can and want to stick around to discuss anything that you haven't heard. So that's what we're doing. With that, I'm going to just come back to all of our faces for a moment. Glad to see the curiosity. That's good. And would just love for our IC team to say a brief hello for those of you who didn't get to meet Sarah in the welcoming. Will you maybe start?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Daniels, and I am the Recruiting and Operations Manager here at IC. It's been a pleasure working with the team and with Nell. I've been on the team for almost 2 years now. And the Purposeful Growth Fellowship is something that we've rolled a lot of our best learning, best mindsets, mentalities, worksheets, activities, all up to something very digestible for you all to benefit from. And we talk about the takeaways, which now we'll get into, but lots of clarity and activation, and overall just feeling very purposeful in your days, weeks, and lives. And so I know I benefited from it, and I know that our team and our interns and we all benefit individually from using the tools. So it's very much like a practice what you preach sort of thing. So just really excited to share all those tools with you so you can get a little bit of a taste and see if it's the right fit for your spring.
And then joining Sarah, hi everybody. My name is Nicolette Cabell. I'm the Recruiting and Community Development Associate here at IC, a little bit fairly new. I'm really excited to see everyone. If you guys want, definitely feel free to put on your cameras. We love to see everybody's face. And so I participated in actually the Purposeful Growth Fellowship, still being an employee here. And it's really, you get a lot of insights into who you are as a person and even where you want to be as a leader within an organization. So definitely take it all in and ask away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Camilla. I'm the Recruiting and Operations Intern. I've been at IC for like 6 months now, I think. Yeah, I think that I've kind of been able to be a part here and there of a few of the seminars that happened in the fall for the Purposeful Growth Fellowship, and they really have an incredible array of speakers and content and tools that you can take with you and that I've taken with me. So yeah, just excited for all of you to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you all. And to keep the chat going a little bit, but just before I dive into some content, what I would love to hear from you all is a word that you associate with purpose or with your purpose journey. What does that mean to you? Is it motivating? Is it, and start positive. We're going to do the negative as well. But what's a positive word for you around your purposeful journey? Again, is it exhilarating? Is it motivating? Or, is it around love for you? What is that word? Just drop that in the chat, please. Key to get out of bed every day. Agree, Luis. I always say, like, I would be super lazy if I hadn't found purpose in my work. I really like bed and reading and connections. So true. It's not just us. Personal growth, cool, introspective. Yeah, awesome. So keep those coming if you haven't yet shared. And for those of you who did, truth. Oh yeah. Love that, Danica. Thank you. But now what about the flip side? What about the shadow? What's a negative word that you associate with purpose or your journey specifically? Mine is never ending, which is good and bad. I think sometimes it can be like, haven't I just arrived? Can't I just have this be my purpose and stop? Responsibility. Yeah, that is a positive one. I like it. A lack of control, right? It's not in our control necessarily. I love that, Elizabeth. It can be frustrating, not clear. Yeah, cool. Thank you. And again, feel free to keep those thoughts or others coming in the chat throughout. I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes here because we did want to give you some of the content and rich ideas and intellectual property that we've developed over 8 years, which is the basis of the fellowship. And we want you all to dig into it. So we'll get to that as well. But use the chat in the meantime to shout out questions or thoughts that are coming to you. So really briefly and specifically, my purpose, I have an alter ego or character, perhaps you could say, the inspiring cowgirl queen, which is how I've come to see myself. And that relates to my purpose because I say that I wrangle like a cowgirl. I wrangle people and ideas in order to make work a healing, engaging, and even joyful, fulfilling experience for all people on the planet. And so this fellowship and the work that we do is very much, that my purpose as being the founder and CEO of this company is around that purpose. I'm going to share slides again. Incomprehension. I get that, Jessie. It's bigger than us sometimes. It can be daunting. So the first thing I want to speak to is we talk about this new way, right? And presumably I imagine a lot of you picture some version of the new way, whether it's our specific definition or not, doesn't much matter. But this is from one of our partners and faculty, Zach Mercurio, who talks about and describes something that a lot of people think. This is actually from a 2003 book. So this is not just kind of a COVID reaction that we're thinking about this, right? But I think it's really valuable to see the orange, which arguably is the kind of old way, right? That industrial revolution, sort of control and command way of certainly working, but also living more broadly, right? And so it's this idea of winning at all costs, of wealth creation, often kind of a zero-sum game, and that leads to distrust, employees burnt out, feeling used or abused. Hopefully some of you have gotten to places beyond this, but I imagine that you may well have lived through some of that as well. The green box on the right and a very good description of a lot of how we describe this new way is individual and collective thriving and flourishing, right? So that's very much our view of what this can look like, is that when we are each at our best, the world is at our best, and so it is not a self-indulgent woo-woo millennial green juice yogi kind of thing that we're talking about when we talk about purposeful growth. It is driving our own performance in terms of our heart health, our mental health, our physical health and longevity, and that ladders up to enable us to build resilient, creative, innovative, efficient, productive organizations that do business in a way that's good for the world, right? And so we're very convinced and persistent in building these win-win-wins in the new way. The fellowship talks a lot through that of, what is this notion of donut economics, or what could a reimagined capitalism look like, and using a lot of the scholars, but also real life tangible examples of companies, of cities, of countries who are really putting this into practice. So our work and the content that you go through is very much based in research, in reality, in data, as well as that aspirational, heartful way that we are working toward. And so how to get to that new way is what we are thinking about, certainly in the fellowship, as well as the rest of our work as Inspiring Capital. And the first part that I want to call out, we in our anti-racism practice as a team, we've been going through the Gifts of Imperfection. And Brene Brown, who's a brilliant researcher that you may be familiar with, talks about, there's a lot of how-tos out there. You can Google in a nanosecond or certainly milliseconds. You could Google how to anything, right? How to 3D print a COVID mask, how to become enlightened, how to make your marriage last forever, how to find a better job, right? You can Google any of that. So why haven't we done all those things? Brene Brown's point is that we don't spend enough time on the things that get in the way. We don't recognize the shame or some of the historical patterns or the habits or the fear or the fatigue, the things that get in the way of simply getting the list, steps 1 through 7, and doing the steps. Because you've probably had an experience where even something as simple as making a piece of IKEA furniture, something gets in the way, right? The cats come in the room, or your boss calls with a new deadline, or you stub your toe and break the thing. So in the fellowship, since we began IC in 2014, we have talked about the struggle. And our goal is not to save you from the struggle. It is just to be here with the resources, the guide, the companionship, and the tools that we have learned we all need to get through the struggle and keep going. Purpose done right is something that we talk about. We don't necessarily talk a ton about right and wrong, but I do think it's important to recognize that, our version of purpose is not a brand statement. It's not some lofty, well-crafted Pulitzer Prize winning sentence about who you are and what you do in the world. It is, first of all, universal. Every single human on earth has purpose. It's not elite. You don't have to earn a certain amount or have a certain education. Number 2, it is ongoing, as some of the words that came up, right? It's this never-ending, evolving journey. It's not about nailing it one day and being done and having your epitaph written at 46 and just living it out. It is constant evolution, which is where this fellowship approach can be really useful. It is also larger than yourself, right? It's not your 6-pack for the summer or your bank account or a promotion. That's not purpose. They may be valuable benchmarks for some reason along the way, but purpose is in service of some people or planet around you. And so we think that that's really important to anchor in and be reminded of. The spectrum of impact is one of the frameworks that have evolved out of our 8 years of work. And, as the saying goes, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And we have had 8 years and multiple 10,000-hour chunks between our entire team and 250 alumni now around the world, as well as the thousands who've heard and read our content and our workshops. And the spectrum of impact is a really simple idea, which is why we think people are finding it really useful. The idea is just that impact can be had by any organization in the world, and therefore by any employee at any organization in the world, or customer or investor. And so, you can start with the government, right? The public sector exists to have positive impact on its citizens. We can debate how well different governments are doing that at different times in history, but that is the function of governmental agencies, right, and organizations. Next, we have the not-for-profit space, which also is legally charged with doing some benefit or good for the society. These now are private organizations, especially in the US context. And so that looks a little different than government. It's not quite as pure, but again, very much impact-driven, not looking to make profit. Then we have this exciting new emerging area of social impact organizations, social enterprises, which we consider to be for-profit and for-purpose, of which Inspiring Capital is proudly one as a certified B Corp. And so these organizations are saying, look, we have a business, we have things to sell, and we are deeply committed and obligated to do that in a way that's good for the world. Finally, on the spectrum, of course, we have traditional for-profit companies, and many of them happily are awakening to the potential of doing business in a way that's better for people and the planet. But others, of course, remain quite universally or uniquely profit-driven. Nonetheless, they are having impact, and we would argue there are a lot of things they could do to have more positive impact. So we talk about this spectrum just as a framework, right? As a scaffolding onto which to think about where you work and who you buy things from or what companies you invest in, understanding that it's not about quitting your job as a banker to go join the Peace Corps, right? In order to live a life of purpose. That is not what we're trying to encourage folks to do. We just want you to tune in to all of the organizations you interact with as an employee, again, a consumer, an investor, whatever it might be, and understand what impact they could and should be having from their place on the spectrum. It looks different for a city government, to be having impact than it does for Kraft Heinz. And so we need to be clear about that and differentiate accordingly, but they can all be doing it. And in our view, they need to all be taking part if we're really going to get to that new way. Another framework that I'll just sort of tease here that we dig into further in the fellowship is this idea of impact to meaning to purpose. And so the important thing here is that purpose is that higher lofty vision, right? It's big and it's all encompassing and it's lifelong. Impact is very tangible, very tactical, right? This is Sarah spent 2 minutes with us grounding so that our neurology could receive new information and we could be fully present here, right? She spent 2 minutes guiding us through that breath exercise. And that had a meaning, which was presence and mindfulness and neurological receptivity to learn. The purpose of that, if we had more time, she would share her purpose statement, and it really is around helping individuals reach their highest potential. And so by getting really good at these 2-minute grounding exercises and having that impact, Sarah's advancing her purpose, right? And so that's a really important cycle that we talk about, because on Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon, when you go back to your normal day after this session, what is it that you'll have to do? Are you cooking dinner? Are you getting ready for bed? Are you, helping kids get to bed? Are you going back to work to get some documents done? Are you going grocery shopping? And how can you do those things, those very mundane, gotta do it things, in a way that ladders up to this high lofty purpose that you have developed or will develop over time for yourself? The last thing I wanted to shout out is another concept, which are our spheres of impact. And rather than the spectrum of impact, which is impact and purpose out there in the world, the spheres of impact are in your life and work. And so that's another framework that we've been able to boil down from very big, broad conversations with hundreds of folks into a set of tools that you can use to get even further with mapping and understanding your potential and current impact. And there's a second preview session on February 10th, which is where we'll dive into that, activating your purpose through these spheres of impact. So we will share that link, which is where you'd register here, also by email as follow-up to this webinar or recording. And so with that, I am going to stop the share just for a moment. Again, if you're able to bring video on, that would be great, especially for these breakouts. We're going to ask you to dive right in with each other for about 10 minutes in this time. that is where the magic happens, right? We have a lot of awesome ideas. We have incredible faculty and a network and community of experts, but you can find that anywhere on the internet, right? That's not special, that's not unique, and it's not life-changing. What is life-changing is the conversations and the pushback and the inquiry and the reflection that happens with our unbelievably fabulously diverse in so many ways, but like-mindedly purpose-seeking in our cohorts. And so I really invite you to enter in that spirit. We have a universal thing on onboarding for our interns and staff. And so even just for this little hour, I'm going to say it here that you're already here. You're good enough. You're smart enough. People like you. This is not about proving your endurance on the purpose journey, or how far you've come, or how smart you are about it, or how much you've read. It's about showing up and being real and listening to the other folks and seeing what you can learn from them. So in that spirit, Nicolette is going to break us out into a few rooms, and we're going to give you these 3 prompts to share, or to discuss. So I'll share them here. First, what impact are you proud of having had in 2020? Second, what impact are you looking forward to this year to come? And getting back to that point made by Brene Brown, what is in your way? Don't worry about writing those down. We'll broadcast them out to you over the 10 minutes that you have. And with that, onward and off you go.
And you guys should be receiving an invite to go to the breakout room. Awesome. Okay, I think it's just us.
Yes.
Alrighty, I'm just gonna let everyone kind of trickle back in slowly. Hopefully that was all a fun experience getting to know everyone new. So welcome back, everyone. Once again, my name is Nicolette Cabell. Okay, I think we're fully grown. This is all of us here. And so before moving on to the next step, would kind of love to hear from the first breakout room with Elizabeth, Jesse, and I want to say Dara, but definitely correct me if I am wrong on your name. Would love to kind of hear what you guys spoke about in terms of, what impact did you bring for 2020? What are you looking to do more of? And if there were any barriers. So anyone from breakout room number 1, feel free to kind of just popcorn style and share.
Okay. Well, I think like our group kind of like spoke about, like how challenging and weird 2020 has been for all of us, and how we really focused on keeping ourselves and our loved ones like healthy and sane, and that like for the most of us that will remain kind of like a priority going into 2021. And I guess like one of the barriers is just like, like not knowing how the next months or year is going to be looking like, like what to expect, and like if you're not really able to plan ahead, like how can you then still make an impact? That was kind of like the questions that arose.
Yeah, I think needless to say, right, from everyone in the room, that 2020 was like what, and so many unknowns, and making yourself a priority as well is so important. And a lot of times is, I would like to think, overshadowed. Did anyone else in the group want to add to that, or any personal barriers that you wanted to share?
I think that for us, the barrier of the uncertainty was a very big one, and just and my dog barking.
We, for the record, we love dogs here at IC. We love dogs here. So.
Yeah, but the pandemic, pandemic life.
Yes, the realities of it. Like even for those, I don't know if anyone in the room is a mom or anything of that, like having kids, having dogs, just like having the fact that you have others in the room besides like your brain thinking is something that we've all had to consider going on, like for who knows how long. But thank you all for sharing. If I don't know if anyone else wants to share anything from that breakout room number 1. But if not, we can go on to would love to hear breakout room number 2. What did you guys speak about? And then like, are you proud of anything from 2020?
Yeah, I think ours was quite similar as well, that obviously kind of felt like not much impact in 2020, but we kind of said that it was more localized impact. So for me personally, last year was sort of the year that I started focusing on more of my purchasing power, so buying more local products, more ethical products, more organic products, things like that. And we said as well, like you're cooking more, so you're sort of more conscious of less waste, and and looking after yourself more as well.
Yeah, Ruth, you bring up a really good point too, in terms of, how you can spend your money, even like the smallest things in terms of buying locally or even cooking. Me, myself, I'm not the best chef, but it's always good to learn, right? I don't know if anyone else cooks in the room. But also, within the fellowship, we also speak about too, kind of those things. How can you make impacts, even if it seems small, but taking that extra step? And I'm sure now we'll speak about it later on, just in terms of like the spheres of impact, which she talks about. And then also from breakout room number 2, Danica, let me know if I said that wrong, but if you wanted to share anything as well.
I think Ruth shared like pretty good what we talked about. It was like mostly local and how we spend our money and trying to support like locally. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think first off, I want to thank you guys for being open. I know this is the first time for all of us meeting each other, and really just speaking about that, one, acknowledging the fact that it's okay that there are a lot of unknowns. And I think the one great thing about the Purposeful Growth Fellowship is that it allows us to acknowledge this fact, but then be able to, you guys are already starting tangible acts, but how can we increase that within the different levels of impact that we can bring? Because it is kind of hard to see how, as an individual being at home, what can I personally do? And I'm kind of on that note, kind of gonna give it on to Nell to continue, and hopefully you guys can see how the Purposeful Growth Fellowship can answer that.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Nicolette. And as Nicolette said, thank you all so much for kind of showing up and diving in. I appreciate that. I think that's maybe a little bit of a silver lining of 2020, right? Is that like all of a sudden we're on Zoom with strangers and we just kind of get right to it. We used to do that in physical rooms, but that was a little easier. I think we could start with improv and have a goofy laugh sesh, and that would break down the walls pretty quickly. It's a little bit harder on Zoom. So I appreciate you all getting there. And, I just want to say, like, keeping yourselves and your families healthy is a massive impact to have had in 2020, right? I mean, obviously we recognize that there's huge privilege. I don't know where all of you are coming from. And so for some of us, that was a lot easier than others. If we had knowledge working jobs that were safe and secure, if we had the ability to stay home, nonetheless, you did that, right? And that is, we talk a lot about the oxygen mask metaphor, right? If you remember back to those days when we used to get on planes and fly places, they would always tell you that if anything happens, you put your oxygen mask on first before helping anyone else. And the same is true of a purposeful life. I spent the first 10 years of my career in the not-for-profit space, and let me tell you, there are a lot of folks in a position to have massive impact who absolutely do not, because they're not taking care of themselves. And they're so burnt out and depleted that they just can't possibly be supportive or patient or visionary or strategic or whatever it might be. And so we really drill down on that self-care element. Again, not in a woo-woo self-indulgent way, but just in like a very practical, what does the neurology say? What does the research say? And how does that allow us to pay it forward? So I definitely would like to change your scripts on whether or not 2020 was impactful, to say nothing of changing the power of your wallet, right? That's the 6th sphere of impact, is your money. What do you buy? What do you invest in? And what do you donate to? And you don't have to be a billionaire for that to be really impactful. So I love that came up in the group as well. The final comment that, we could jam on this for hours, and that's what we do in the fellowship, which is really enjoyable. But for now, before I hand it over to Sarah for some of the logistics that we want to make sure you get that you came for, The uncertainty thing is super real. So I hear that frustration. I hear that barrier. I want to suggest that the uncertainty was always there. We were never in control. So has it been thrown into our faces? Is it much clearer? Our colleague Camilla is sitting in New York, not home with her family as hoped, which is a big difference. And so she's living that lesson very rightly. I get, yes, there are some logistical differences, but in kind of a big systems cosmic way, we aren't in control as humans. We're not. We're a piece of the system. And so I would encourage you all to use this time as an amazing gift with, again, lots of death, very unfairly distributed, and suffering and challenge and scary stuff for all of us in different ways. That grief needs to happen and is very real. So I don't mean to paper over it. And I think there is an amazing opportunity to get comfortable with the uncertainty and recognize what do we have control over? What are you going to cook for dinner? What local shop are you going to buy it from, right? How are you going to show up to a team meeting, knowing that everyone's living in that same uncertainty, right? And so we spend a lot of time about those things because the uncertainty is not going away, right? I mean, certainly we know that the COVID limits have been extended and uncertainty remains. Economic and racial equity, that's creating a lot of challenge and change and uncertainty, rightly so, but that's not going to be fixed, on anyone's time clock, for better or worse. And so I think the invitation is really to get the resources and the tools and the practices and the knowledge and the community that you need to stay grounded, stay purposeful, in spite of, or perhaps even thanks to, this uncertainty that's being thrown at us so vividly in the last 12 months and probably for several more. So with that, hopefully a little taste of some of the peer sessions. Again, obviously the relationships get deeper when you have pre-reading. It's that much more rich and exciting, but that is what we spend about a third of the fellowship time. And more specifically, I will hand it over to Sarah to talk to what the fellowship looks and feels like.
Yeah, thank you, Nell. And again, thank you guys all for sharing. It's really validating to hear it from everyone that we're all going through very, very similar paths, and those patterns can be shared by us all and something that we can connect on. And so even knowing, amidst all of the challenges and struggles of 2020 and into 2021, that we can connect through them. But as Nell said, just the offering. So what the Purposeful Growth Fellowship is, and we call it the PGF, we do work our way through the me, we, and world dimensions of purpose, and then also how to activate within those and take action beyond. So we work through those dimensions. As Nell mentioned, there is a component of individual learning, some pre-work and reflection. Of course, that facilitated discussion, which is that live session with expert speakers. And so that is the kind of learning method. It's 10 weeks long, and this spring cohort will start the end of February, so February 22nd. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you sign up before that, of course, to get you started enrolling and into the platform. As we talked about, there is about 2 to 3 hours worth of commitment of your time. So, 1 hour of the live session, but then also balancing it with your schedule to fit into that pre-work so that you come prepared and you come with thoughts, and so that you can really have rich conversations with those cohort members. Finally, the cost is $2,020 for the tuition, but there is an early bird price of $950, and then also buy one, give one option. So if you'd like to sponsor someone, you can do that as well. And there's an option to sign up through our our log out checkout page. And so we'd love for people to use that early bird discount, get that discount price. And so to do that, you have to do that before 2/16, so February 16th. And then we have an additional add-on for this spring cohort, which we are trying out, and that is a coaching add-on if you want some more one-on-one support. And we actually have our coach Juanita on here, so I'd love to pass it over to her to talk more about that coaching add-on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I think as I was listening to everybody and just hearing all this talk about uncertainty and what 2020 has been, really the coaching piece where it enters is that I would invite you to think about what is it that you want out of this fellowship, right? Like, what is it that you are going to create? What is it that you're going to do in the world after you complete this fellowship? And as you think about this, the thing with coaching is that it's just an extra structure for whatever you're doing. The bigger the shifts you're going to want to create, the bigger the support that you need. And so if there are really big things that you're up to in the world, if this actually entails for you, maybe even a career change or big changes in your life, then coaching would be a really great support to carry this, not just through the fellowship, but past the fellowship. So that this isn't a great book that you read one time and then put on the bookshelf, but this is actually something you take action on in your own life. And so again, depending on the level of shift that you're looking to make, there is a group coaching component where it's going to be group coaching, kind of like the group sessions, but coaching throughout the length of the fellowship. And then also an opportunity to do one-on-one coaching at the end of the fellowship to really take everything that you worked on, everything that you learned out into the world and your real life.
I just want to pipe in and say that so all of that is true, and we're really excited about pairing this. We've heard time after time that the one-on-one or just a more intentional, even in a group context, that more intentional coaching is really helpful for folks. So we feel great about our version, which is kind of the one-to-many, makes it more cost-effective for people, which we feel very good about. And though having that additional support is massively helpful. I also want to say Juanita is an IC alum. She came through our very first fellowship in 2014 when she was a corporate finance whiz. It was a highly selective MBA cohort that we ran, and it was the first time we were doing it, total experiment, and her career coach from NYU sent her to us to say, I think this person might be a good fit. And I remember so vividly, I remember the little kitchenette that we were sitting in our crappy co-working space in downtown Manhattan. And she said, I look at a spreadsheet and I just get starry-eyed. And we had this great not-for-profit that was trying to do a whole cost renovation and everything. And I was like, you are exactly who I need. And I share that not only to let you know a little bit of Juanita's background and how fabulous and purposeful she is across the spectrum, right? Having come from corporate finance roles in the very traditional for-profit world in Colombia and then in the US, but also to say that purpose can be in spreadsheets, that there is purpose there. And so it now, of course, she's doing coaching and spreading the purposefulness with which she approached corporate finance to other folks across industries. But it's such a point of pride, not only 8 years later to be working as peers in this thing with an alum, but I think also your journey is just so fabulous. So anyway, I'll stop there and hand it back to Sarah for a few specific next steps. But Juanita, it's such a joy to have you here.
Yes, I agree. Such a joy to be working with you. So excited to see how you can support all the PGF fellows' next steps and journeys to really find and identify and activate their purpose. It feels so good when you do get to live out your purpose and see what that feels like every day. But again, for these next steps, we talked about the buy one, give one option. And so we have all this information for checkout, for more details, for coaching details. Everything is on our Thinkific page, which Nell has just put into the chat. So feel free to click that link and explore, read about, what questions maybe the fellowship can answer for you. And then do contact Juanita through that platform if you are interested in the coaching beyond signing up for the fellowship. And so we do have a sign up that you can get onto our mailing list if you'd like some reminders from us. If you'd like some more information, we have some different alumni testimonials. I think they're lined up to be sent out, so you guys can read about what the alums are saying and just more information to keep it on your radar over the next month or so. And then finally, we do have some resources to help you to request funding if you would like to request it from your employer or your university. And there's also that pay what you wish option. So all three of those links that are here on this screen, we are also going to put into the chat, and we'll follow up with you in an email so you'll have that on your own time. And so that's all from us. Again, just that first link, that Thinkific page has it all. I would just feel free to read that and really think about it, see what you want out of the fellowship, and then contact us, because we'd love to just follow up with you and have you in our spring cohort.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah. And as promised, we're right at the top of the hour. Obviously, we are happy to hang for a few minutes if people do have questions or want to pipe in about logistics or even any of the content stuff that you're curious to hear more on. But otherwise, that is the bulk of our session. And so before we get to any questions, I would just ask you to chat a checkout word. How are you feeling now versus how you showed up? And also, if you've thought of a next step, if something that a peer said or one of us said has been like, oh yeah, I should look into my local grocery and see if I can do that a little more than Amazon, or whatever else it might be. Would love to hear that in the chat. Always glad to know when we're inspired. We get that happily a lot, and that feels really on brand. We have not changed our name in 8 years, even among logo changes and pivots, because we do seem to nail that one. Informed, I'm so glad, Elizabeth. Yeah, and those peer connections are super rich. Awesome. Any next steps that emerged? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I'm going to do that now? Motivated is good. Ruth.
I'll actually share something really small around just like, like something you talked about of the impact of your wallet kind of thing. But I yesterday opened my business account, officially have a business account. And I was going to open it 3 months ago, I think, but I did the due diligence of like, where do I want to put my money? Because I keep talking about impact and I keep talking about the importance of diversity everywhere. And I'm going to go bank at Chase again, doesn't actually make sense. And so found a bank that invests local and is really good with the local entrepreneurial community. So actually putting your money where your intention is.
That's amazing. Good for you. Good for you. Well, thank you all so much. Again, feel free to hang out if you have a question, but otherwise, appreciate it. Have good walks, have good play, Ruth. Have fun with your son. And we look forward to seeing you again when it makes sense.
Thanks so much.
Peace.
Yeah, bye all. Have a good day.